Life is rarely a level playing field. Regardless of your integrity, betrayal is inevitable. Even with unmatched expertise, an underqualified person will eventually steal your thunder. That is the harsh truth of existence. However, individuals who grasp this truth are the ones who endure. Moreover, those who endure are the ones who ultimately conquer. There is an invisible force at play that everyone subconsciously senses. We call this dark intelligence. This profound awareness emerges from the ashes of deception, embarrassment, and devastating losses. While ordinary folks crumble under that agony, you forge resilience from your suffering. It represents a mindset that quietly observes, absorbs, bides its time, and executes its moves flawlessly. As the masses bicker, you quietly hoard valuable data. While they throw tantrums, you crunch the numbers. As they are consumed by their feelings, you are mapping out tomorrow. The average person is barely playing checkers. I am about to teach you the grandmaster game of chess. Before we plunge into these concepts, I need to establish a firm boundary. These tactics are meant for your shield, never your sword. Apply them to guard your own well-being rather than causing harm to the blameless. We are learning the rules of the board to survive, not to morph into the bad guy. In this video, we will explore 8 psychological characteristics distinguishing the prey from the predators, the sheep from the shepherds, and the defeated from the champions. Right now, type this exact phrase down below. I decide to act with strategic brilliance rather than emotional impulses. Let us dive into the concealed strategies that the elite hope you never figure out. The first concept is measured ambiguity. You must never lay all your motives out on the table. Reveal only the absolute bare minimum. If the crowd only grasps a fraction of your narrative, their minds will automatically invent the rest. That very mental invention is what gives you a hold over them. As Machiavelli famously noted, the masses perceive your outward facade, but hardly anyone grasps your true essence. Picture the most captivating individuals in your life. They refrain from spilling every detail. Their anecdotes always have missing puzzle pieces. When interrogated, they deflect by asking you something back. Where you anticipate a lengthy justification, they simply offer a smirk. This has absolutely nothing to do with deception. It is the mastery of tactical dialogue. Consider a typical daily interaction. A colleague poses a query, and you instantly feel compelled to dump a comprehensive reply. You unpack your internal drives, your anxieties, and your upcoming agenda. While you believe you are fostering a bond through candor, you are quite literally bleeding out your leverage. Brilliant minds recognize that holding things back generates authority. By withholding the full picture, you spark intense fascination. That fascination blossoms into intrigue, which breeds deep admiration, ultimately granting you massive sway. Imagine a coworker inquiring about your upcoming Saturday. A standard response is usually a boring rundown of staying on the couch and binge-watching TV. That might be totally truthful, but it makes you entirely unmemorable. Alternatively, you could state, "I've got a crucial matter to handle." Immediately afterward, steer the chat in a new direction. Look at the contrast there. Option 1 leaves you easily readable. Option 2 instantly makes you captivating. Now, I am not telling you to act obnoxious or to hide every trivial fact. I am advising you to carefully filter what data you distribute and precisely when you distribute it. Top-tier achievers across every industry have this locked down. They drop just enough breadcrumbs to hook their audience, but never hand over the whole loaf and surrender their upper hand. Think of your personal details as cold, hard cash. Stop blowing your budget in a single conversation. By applying measured ambiguity, folks naturally hang on your every syllable, realizing that you speak sparingly. Your statements pack a heavier punch simply because of their scarcity. Keep in mind, the objective isn't merely acting like a cryptic puzzle for fun. Your true aim is retaining command over your own image and social dynamics. The second trait is the fluid character. You shouldn't act identically around every single individual. You must tweak your demeanor depending on your conversation partner. Acquaintances believe they have you figured out, yet they have only met a single fragment of your identity. Machiavelli instructed that a leader should rigorously filter their speech so they are always perceived as compassionate, loyal, ethical, and devout by whoever is watching. Do not mistake this for being a fraud. This is simply about securing the best result. You actually perform this subconsciously right now. The tone you use with your grandparents is drastically different from the banter you share with your buddies. Your posture during a corporate hiring process looks vastly different than your vibe at a Friday night gathering. You naturally showcase distinct slices of your identity depending on the environment. The fluid character simply turns this automatic habit into a calculated weapon. Every human crossing your path operates on distinct moral compasses, conversational rhythms, and learning methods. Applying a one-size-fits-all tactic means you will win over a few, but alienate the vast majority. Brilliant communicators analyze their audience and tailor their delivery on the fly. If they are driven by logic, hand them raw statistics. If they run on passion, speak directly to their heart. If they are hands-on, demonstrate the mechanics. If they are visionaries, sketch out the grand horizon. Stop viewing this as trickery. This is advanced social calibration. Consider the nature of liquid. A liquid instantly molds to the exact dimensions of its vessel, yet its chemical makeup never alters. It remains fundamentally itself, whether resting in a mug, a jug, or an ocean. Your fluid character operates under the exact same logic. You morph your outward display to suit the context, without ever compromising your foundational morals. The fatal error the masses commit is believing that keeping it real requires acting totally uniform around every soul they meet. True authenticity is not about rigid sameness across the board. It is about holding true to your essence, while modifying your delivery to maximize impact. By conquering this trait, you evolve into a chameleon who can build rapport with anybody. Individuals feel profoundly recognized in your presence since you are actively broadcasting on their unique frequency. This talent yields explosive results during intense bargaining, team management, and networking. You are not aggressively making them see your point of view. You are simply paving a smooth road for them to bond with you. However, heed this caution strictly. Do not bend so drastically that your true identity vanishes. Your inner compass, your honesty, and your bedrock beliefs must remain immovable. Merely your external interface shifts. The most formidable individuals resemble a cut diamond. They possess countless sparkling sides, yet they remain a single, unbreakable gem. The third lesson is the law of non-attachment. You refuse to become a prisoner to another human, a fleeting feeling, or public perception. That which you do not dread losing holds absolutely zero sway over you. If it cannot chain you down, it cannot exploit you. Machiavelli pointed out that because affection and dread rarely mix, choosing dread is the much safer bet for a ruler. Non-attachment gets misinterpreted constantly in the realm of strategic psychology. The average person assumes it equates to being a heartless robot. It absolutely does not. It simply signifies total liberation. The vast majority of society is enslaved by what they cling to. Terrified of getting fired, they tolerate abusive bosses. Petrified of a breakup, they trample on their own self-respect. Horrified of being disliked, they regurgitate crowd-pleasing lies rather than voicing necessary truths. The terror of losing things cripples you. Eradicating that terror turns you into an unstoppable force. This is not a mandate to become totally apathetic towards life. It is a command to eliminate desperation from your operating system. Picture a scenario where two individuals are hammering out a corporate contract. The first individual is desperate for the ink to dry. Their survival hinges on it. They have mentally spent the money before the check is cut. The second individual desires a successful deal, yet possesses backup plans. They are perfectly comfortable leaving the table if the numbers don't make sense. Who holds the dominant hand in that room? The second person, without a doubt. Their lack of desperation allows them to demand better terms. Non-attachment hands you a crystal-clear lens. Stripping away the ego's need to be correct allows you to assess reality accurately. Eliminating the thirst for validation leads to vastly superior life choices. Conquering the dread of solitude enables you to pick far healthier partners. Here is the ultimate irony. Dropping your desperate need for a specific prize drastically increases your odds of capturing it. Analyze highly self-assured individuals. Their swagger doesn't come from a perfect track record. Their swagger comes from the absolute certainty that they will survive a loss. That is the magic of non-attachment. Again, do not mistake this for negligent apathy. Continue grinding toward your ambitions and loving your circle deeply. Just refuse to handcuff yourself to a specific result to the point where your logical brain shuts down. Non-attachment serves as your supreme armor against coercion. If a manipulator tries to intimidate you by threatening to destroy something you are perfectly fine living without, their leverage instantly evaporates. The wildest wildcard in any environment is the individual with zero stakes. However, the absolute king of the environment is the individual with limitless upside and zero anxieties. Ease into this habit slowly. Begin with minor stakes. Let go of the burning need to conquer every petty debate. Drop the fantasy of being universally adored. Stop throwing a fit when your schedule goes slightly off the rails. As you strengthen this muscle, a fascinating shift occurs. The world treats you with heightened reverence. Others can instinctively smell that you cannot be bullied, and that radiates pure authority. Retain this truth. Non-attachment is not apathy. It is the art of cherishing things without letting those things dictate your every move. The fourth strategy is unspoken gravity. Instead of aggressively forcing an issue, you patiently observe. As others stumble and expose their weak points, your quiet observation transforms into the most dominant force present. Machiavelli stated that extraordinary feats are always accompanied by peril. Society assumes dominance is noisy. They associate it with screaming, barking orders, and bullying people into submission. That is rookie behavior. True dominance operates in a hush. Unspoken gravity means building your sway entirely through your aura, not your vocal cords. You strategically place yourself in a way that simply walking into a space alters its entire molecular structure. This is the mechanics of it. Rather than dictating orders, you engineer environments where people organically desire to execute the actions that favor you. Rather than shouting for obedience, you transform into a vital asset. Rather than wrestling for the crown, you manipulate the game so they happily hand it over. Let us look at real-world applications. During a dialogue, unspoken gravity is the mastery of the dead stop. The average individual dreads quiet moments and nervously babbles to kill the tension. Frequently, that babble leaks highly sensitive information. When you can sit peacefully in the quiet, you dictate the entire tempo of the interaction. The next time you face a tough inquiry, do not fire back right away. Freeze. Stare deeply into their eyes. Allow the quiet to drag out for an uncomfortable duration, and only then deliver your reply. Observe how tremendously this magnifies the impact of your statement. During business deals, unspoken gravity equates to possessing secret backup plans. If your counterpart senses you are not trapped, their aggressive tactics melt away. You never need to verbally threaten an exit. Your quiet readiness to depart does all the heavy lifting. In your personal life, this means enriching others without begging for a trophy. By constantly upgrading the lives of your circle, they become biologically wired to keep you close. Begging for allegiance is pointless. You forge it through undeniable utility. At the office, unspoken gravity is morphing into the unofficial fixer. You never print out a badge claiming to be the savior. You merely crush obstacles day in and day out, cementing your reputation as the ultimate safety net. The cornerstone of unspoken gravity is absolute patience. You must abandon the thirst for overnight success. You are constructing an empire of influence. The masses crave a dopamine hit right this second. They demand an immediate return on their sweat. Unspoken gravity plays the long game. You bury the seeds and let time do its job. You compound your value and watch the wealth multiply. This demands a radical psychological shift. Holding out for the massive payoff must become your comfort zone. You must possess unwavering faith that your relentless behavioral patterns will eventually spawn the authority you desire. So, what occurs when you perfect this? Colleagues begin begging for your insight without you uttering a peep. They crave your nod of approval without you issuing a single command. They fall in line behind you without you ever organizing a parade. You transform into the phantom architect, bending reality while remaining completely undetected. Now, we must address a crucial moral boundary. Unspoken gravity must never be weaponized to lead victims into self-destruction. Your objective is architecting scenarios where every party prospers. The highest and most righteous application of this skill is gently steering individuals toward choices that elevate their own existence. This isn't a scam. It is a gentle nudge toward a universally profitable destination. Keep in mind, this strategy is not about sitting on your hands. You are heavily involved. You are executing masterstrokes. You are simply operating in the shadows with surgical precision, rather than banging a drum. The fifth tactic is the mental mirror. You bounce an individual's darkest terrors and hidden cravings right back into their eyes. They believe you are a kindred spirit, but in reality, you are harvesting data and establishing control. Machiavelli noted that humanity relies more on their vision than their touch, meaning the masses swallow the illusion while a rare few detect the underlying truth. The mental mirror transforms you into a reflective surface, projecting the exact image and audio your target is desperate to experience. Again, this is not a malicious con. This is extreme empathy weaponized for optimal dialogue. Humans do not purchase items, labor, or concepts. They purchase painkillers for their agony and vehicles for their fantasies. Once you pinpoint and vocalize their true internal deficits, your stock value skyrockets in their eyes. The majority of society fails miserably at this technique because they are obsessing over their own monologue instead of listening for the exact phrases the other party is dying to hear. Allow me to break down the mechanics of the mental mirror. Step 1 is enrolling in the University of Human Behavior. You must realize that every stranger you cross paths with is lugging around hidden trauma, suppressed lusts, and muted terrors. Your mission is to scan their frequencies for hints about those hidden payloads. When an associate rants about their career, they aren't just reciting facts. They are stripping naked, exposing their self-esteem, their true priorities, and their midnight panics. When an acquaintance vents about their romantic life, they are handing you the blueprint to their emotional triggers and profound cravings. Ordinary people merely wait for their turn to talk. You must absorb data to decode the matrix. Let me give you a usable blueprint. Every human essentially projects 3 muted pleas. Are you acknowledging my existence? Do you grasp my inner world? And am I important to you? By affirmatively answering those 3 hidden pleas via your vocabulary and deeds, you forge an unbreakable bond. The mental mirror strategy isn't about parroting their vocabulary, but echoing their underlying intent. You are hunting for the grief masked by the phrasing, the starvation disguised as a grievance, the terror hiding under the rage. Take a common scenario where a friend groans about hating their career. A normal person instantly spits out a suggestion to polish up a resume. However, if you apply dark intelligence, you detect that they actually feel invisible, bored out of their minds, or terrified of stagnation. A proper mental mirror reply would sound like, "It feels as though your hard work is going unnoticed." Or perhaps, "It appears you are craving a far greater mountain to climb. Observe the gap there." Rather than tossing out quick fixes, you are validating their internal turmoil. This produces a profound sense of validation, which in turn breeds monumental loyalty and sway. The golden rule here is to mirror the most flattering interpretation of their venting. If a colleague is crying about having too much on their plate, you highlight their elite work ethic and perfectionism. If a peer is furiously ranting about a botched project, you frame it as their relentless pursuit of greatness. This tactic is foolproof because the human brain is starving to be fully comprehended. By proving that you possess the vision to see their true colors, they instantly lower their defenses and place your advice on a pedestal. Now let us shift into the hyper-effective phase. After you map out their foundational drives and terrors, you can repackage all of your pitches, advice, and demands in a wrapper they find irresistible. If they crave safety nets, you pitch your concept as an impenetrable fortress. If they hunger for applause, you frame your request as a gateway to prestige and fame. If they are obsessed with liberty, you angle your idea as the ultimate ticket to unchained options. You have not altered your core objective. You have merely disguised the pill in the exact flavor their specific psyche prefers. This mechanism is absolute dynamite in boardrooms, sales calls, raising children, and romantic partnerships. The moment someone believes you have peered directly into their soul, they become organically driven to assist you, fall in line, and elevate your status. The honorable method of deploying the mental mirror is having an authentic desire to decode their pain and assist them in acquiring their remedy. Applied with the intention of mutual elevation, it transforms into an instrument for engineering incredibly potent alliances. The sixth lesson is ethical fluidity. You abandon the labels of saint and sinner. Your only allegiance is to execution. Authentic dominance rarely fits into neat boxes of right and wrong. Frequently, it thrives in the foggy middle ground. Machiavelli advised that since it is incredibly tough to be both adored and terrifying, leaning into terror is the superior choice if you can only hold one card. This is undeniably the most polarizing aspect of dark intelligence, and the one that causes the most outrage due to poor comprehension. Allow me to draw a thick line between the reality of this trait and the dangerous myth. Ethical fluidity is not a license to be a sociopath. It does not give you permission to rampage through life ignoring the fallout. It absolutely does not mean crushing the innocent to climb the ladder. It simply denotes a deep realization that actual existence is messy. On many occasions, executing the noble move today sets the stage for a massive disaster tomorrow. On many occasions, blind kindness just acts as fertilizer for toxic habits. On many occasions, shielding the vulnerable demands executing maneuvers that look incredibly ugly on paper. Here is the naked truth. Pristine. Angelic ethics are a fantasy that you cannot finance when you are navigating high-stakes chaos. Let us explore a tangible scenario to lock this in. Pretend you manage a department, and you uncover a subordinate chronically deceiving buyers and destroying trust. The sweet angelic response is to extend a lifeline, schedule extra coaching, and cross your fingers. But what happens to the honest employees pulling their weight? What happens to the buyers getting scammed? What happens to the survival of the entire company? An ethically fluid leader determines that defending the massive group far outweighs being gentle to the lone offender. They will ruthlessly amputate that toxic employee, despite the immense discomfort of doing so. That is not malice. That is calculated righteousness. Here is another instance. A buddy seeks your counsel regarding a deeply poisonous romance. The polite route is to smile, nod, and withhold any brutal critiques. However, an ethically fluid strategist realizes that authentic compassion demands delivering a shattering reality check, even if it causes immediate, agonizing tears. The core pillar of this trait is prioritizing the final result over the public optics. Frequently, a maneuver that seems saintly breeds devastation. Conversely, a maneuver that appears tyrannical can spawn incredible prosperity for the collective. This necessitates reprogramming your moral compass. Abandon the question, which choice makes the crowd cheer for me? Replace it with, which choice manufactures the most optimal reality for the largest group? It also demands carrying the total burden of your choices, specifically when they make you the villain of the story. But do not miss this vital nuance. Ethical fluidity does not equal narcissism. You are not exploiting the weak to line your own pockets. You are executing cold, hard equations to benefit the entire ecosystem, even when pulling the trigger tears you apart inside. This characteristic also means recognizing that the environment dictates the weapon. A maneuver deemed utterly corrupt in Scenario A might be the only viable survival tactic in Scenario B. For instance, radical transparency is mandatory for a healthy marriage, yet it is professional suicide during a tense corporate buyout where hiding your cards is paramount. The ethically fluid operator grasps these subtle shifts and recalibrates their compass on the fly. The immense hazard of this philosophy is twisting it to validate your own greed or sadism. That is precisely why you must construct ironclad guardrails regarding your own conduct, regardless of the chaos. I strongly advise mapping out your personal absolutes. Identify your core pillars, outline the boundaries you will die before crossing, and dictate the exact collateral damage you are prepared to shoulder. Once inside that fortress, grant yourself the freedom to act ruthlessly and intelligently, even if the public brands you a monster. Remember, your mission is not winning a popularity contest. Your mission is to execute with lethal precision in a tangled universe where fairy tale logic gets you killed. The seventh principle is regulated visibility. You must constantly censor the broadcast of your inner workings. A massive lack of data forces the opposition to guess, and guessing creates fatal blind spots that you can effortlessly exploit. Machiavelli observed that humanity is so easily manipulated by their short-term cravings that a cunning operator will never run out of easy marks. In our modern era, where society vomits every waking thought onto the internet, regulated visibility might appear old-fashioned, yet its potency has literally never been higher. In a landscape flooded with desperate oversharers, the sole individual rationing their output becomes a god. While the peasants scream for attention, the silent phantom captures all the fascination. Regulated visibility is the art of weaponizing your privacy. It requires grasping the fact that 99% of the population has zero clearance to your files, and that rationing your data actually supercharges your magnetism and power. Let us decode the neurology at play here. The human animal is biologically addicted to solving puzzles. The second we face a fragmented picture or a shadowy figure, our gray matter works overtime attempting to paint the rest of the canvas. Scientists label this the curiosity gap, and it operates as one of the most hypnotic levers in the human mind. By deploying regulated visibility, you manufacture these chasms of missing data, forcing society to obsess over you and hang on your every meager syllable. Recall the most hypnotic individuals you have ever crossed paths with. I guarantee they hold back the juicy details. They feed you enough to spark your appetite, then pull the plate away while you are still hungry. That is not a coincidence. It is a calculated strike. Now let us pivot to real-world deployment in the corporate jungle. Regulated visibility dictates rationing your brightest concepts and timing their release perfectly. You must never empty your entire arsenal of talents on day one. You must stash specific superpowers in the vault, deploying them solely when the blast radius will be maximized. Imagine landing a fresh position. Rather than flexing every muscle you have by Friday, you slowly drip out your expertise over 6 months. This engineers the illusion that you are an endlessly evolving prodigy, as opposed to a one-trick pony who blew their load immediately. In casual environments, regulated visibility equates to refusing to vomit your entire biography onto a stranger. You distribute your sensitive data drop by drop, strictly in tandem with the level of loyalty they have proven. Again, this isn't about acting shady or lying through your teeth. It is about surgical precision regarding what intel gets declassified and to which specific clearance level. When locking horns at the bargaining table, it means masking your true deadlines and absolute minimums at the start. You hold ammo in the magazine to deploy as the war of attrition drags on. The golden law of the universe is this: unringing a bell is biologically impossible. The second a fact exits your lips, it takes permanent residence in their brain. Therefore, always default to saying significantly less than you feel the urge to. However, regulated visibility isn't merely an act of suppression. It is a game of extreme timing. A single data point will trigger radically vastly different explosions, depending on the exact second it is detonated. For instance, dropping your prestigious degree in the first 5 minutes of a date comes off as arrogant narcissism, whereas deploying that exact same fact months later to crush a specific hurdle frames you as a modest genius. Regulated visibility also dictates profiling your recipient. Various factions require vastly different puzzle pieces of your identity. The volume of your data dump must perfectly align with the depth of the bond. Your inner circle deserves access to files that your gym buddies should never even know exist. Your financial backers must receive an entirely different briefing than your arch rivals. Your subordinates require an alternative perspective of your character compared to your equals. Do not confuse this with being a chameleon fraud. This is simply implementing fierce operational security regarding your own existence. Pay close attention to this next pillar. Regulated visibility absolutely mandates policing your internet shadow. Every single status update, every snarky reply, every snapshot you upload is etched into titanium for eternity. The public will construct an entire psychological profile on you based entirely on that data, without ever shaking your hand. Geniuses treat their internet footprint like a military operation. They recognize that their virtual avatar is a massive gear in the machine of how history will judge them. The objective of regulated visibility is not to cosplay as a secret agent for cheap thrills. The objective is retaining a chokehold on your own storyline and your social leverage. By treating your facts like classified documents, you directly program the matrix of how others evaluate you. You can shine a massive spotlight on the specific traits required to conquer your immediate target. You obliterate the risk of being shoved into a lazy category by ignorant onlookers, but you must walk this tightrope perfectly. You have to distribute enough warmth to forge real alliances, while hoarding enough secrets to maintain your lethal edge. The absolute titans of industry have this ratio dialed in perfectly. They appear wonderfully transparent behind closed doors, yet they are calculating every single syllable they release into the wild. The final lesson is terminal velocity toward the finish line. You did not enter this arena to collect debate trophies or massage your ego. You are here to extract the prize. Individuals infected with this absolute fixation refuse to bleed energy on trivial ego battles. Machiavelli boldly stated that making a pledge was required yesterday, but shattering that pledge is the requirement of today. This is the exact dividing line between the minor leagues and the Hall of Fame, between the hallucinating masses and the brutal conquerors. The average civilian is easily hypnotized by shiny garbage. Their thirst for being correct eclipses their thirst for actual victory. Their obsession with their public image dwarfs their desire to hold the gold medal. They prioritize the warm fuzzies of their daily routine over crossing the finish line. Terminal velocity incinerates all that pathetic static. When infected with this mindset, your internal dialogue mutates. Instead of crying, "How do I show them I'm the smartest?" you demand, "What specific trophy am I hunting right now?" Instead of asking, "How do I save face here?" you calculate, "Which levers must I pull to secure the ultimate bag?" That mental pivot rewires your entire existence. Let us apply this to verbal combat. The majority enter a conflict attempting to win a high school debate. They obsess over pointing out flaws, trapping their rival in a hypocritical statement, and flexing their massive intellect. The apex predator treats conflict in a completely alien manner. They internally interrogate, "What is the tangible asset I am extracting from this exchange?" Perhaps the objective is altering a bad habit. Perhaps it is securing a middle ground. Perhaps it is simply conducting espionage on the rival's mindset. The second they lock onto the target, they engineer the perfect weapon. On rare occasions, that means obliterating them with facts, but usually, it requires a totally different playbook. For instance, if your true mission is getting someone to change their habits, logically humiliating them is a suicidal tactic. Humans despise having their ignorance exposed, and they will stubbornly dig their heels into the mud the second they feel targeted. The lethal tactic is leading them by the nose, so they believe the brilliant idea was theirs all along. If your mission is preserving an alliance while fixing a leak, stomping around screaming "I told you so" is vastly inferior to manufacturing a seamless fix that saves everybody's pride. This philosophy bleeds into every sector of existence. In the corporate sphere, terminal velocity dictates obsessing over the exact metrics that explode the profit margins, rather than chasing projects that puff up your resume. It means selecting the unglamorous trenches that yield massive dividends over the flashy stages that yield nothing. It dictates pulling the trigger based on raw math and cold outcomes, utterly ignoring office drama and personal bias. In romantic bonds, terminal velocity forces you to prioritize the longevity of the union over keeping a scoreboard of who won last night's squabble. It requires ignoring 1,000 petty annoyances because they do not threaten the ultimate objective. In the realm of self-improvement, it demands grading yourself exclusively by the brutal numbers on the scale, not by how much you sweat or how noble your dreams are. It forces you to stare into the mirror and admit a tactic is failing, regardless of how much your ego bleeds. Now, we reach the nuclear core of this trait. It makes you immune to the hamster wheel of fake productivity. Millions of fools mistake frantic movement for actual progress. They blindly believe that bleeding from their pores guarantees a gold medal. The apex predator recognizes that you can sprint a marathon in the wrong direction and still finish exactly where you started. They relentlessly audit themselves, asking, "Is this action inching me closer to the throne? Or am I just shuffling papers to delay the terrifying, agonizing heavy lifting?" This births a phenomenon known as weaponized lethargy. These predators frequently look like they are slacking off compared to the frantic masses, strictly because they ruthlessly guard their stamina. They pour all their gasoline exclusively into the tiny fraction of levers that control the majority of the machine. Their goal isn't sweating the most blood. Their goal is dealing the most damage with the least movement. This translates directly to acquiring new talents. Rather than trying to swallow the entire encyclopedia, they isolate and master the one singular technique that will blow the doors off their industry. They calculate, what is the absolute bare minimum data I must inject to trigger an avalanche of success? Do not confuse this with being a deadbeat. This is operating with sniper, like precision. However, we must attach a massive red flag to this mindset. This fixation turns demonic the second you sacrifice your core morals and human connections on the altar of victory. The optimal framework is hunting your targets violently, but strictly inside the fences of your own morality. Your master plan must inherently require you to keep your honor intact, act righteously toward others, and leave the planet slightly better than you found it. The second those guardrails are welded into your operating system, this trait becomes a weapon of mass elevation. A secondary pillar of this fixation is the sheer ruthlessness required to abandon a sinking ship. The masses fall madly in love with their blueprints, riding them all the way to the bottom of the ocean out of blind loyalty. The apex predator falls in love with the treasure chest, not the map. If Tunnel A caves in, they immediately start blasting Tunnel B. If Tactic X fizzles out, they invent Tactic Y before lunch. They have zero emotional attachment to the vehicle. They are exclusively obsessed with the destination. That fluid nature makes them impossible to kill and immune to setbacks. The second the wind shifts, they trim the sails. The second fresh intel crosses their desk, the entire playbook gets ripped up and rewritten. The absolute pinnacle of this mindset is morphing into a machine that universally guarantees execution. You are no longer the guy boasting about the upcoming conquest. You are no longer the guy buying expensive gear to look the part. You are the Grim Reaper who actually drags the carcass back to camp. That specific aura compounds in value exponentially. The moment the market identifies you as the one individual who never drops the ball, they start throwing premium deals, elite allies, and multi-million-dollar puzzles directly into your lap. You have officially unlocked the 8 pillars of this concealed psychology. Yet, hoarding facts without pulling the trigger is pathetic. Select the single pillar that struck the deepest nerve today. Over the next week, rigorously inject it into every conversation you have. Do not foolishly attempt to juggle all 8. Isolate just one. Pay close attention to how the crowd suddenly bends to your will. Monitor the massive spike in your own confidence when you navigate the chaos like a tactician rather than a weeping victim. However, snap back to the promise we made in the first minute. This ammunition requires a safety switch. Deploy this arsenal to bulletproof your own life, never to shatter the weak. Engineer these tactics to manifest prosperity for the entire room, not strictly your own pockets. Society is starving for cunning operators who wield their heavy machinery with honor. We require wolves who can instantly detect a scam and shield the flock. We need masterminds who can wade through impossible gridlocks and extract a miracle for the collective. That is the authentic heartbeat of this philosophy. The mission is not upgrading into a puppet master. The mission is becoming entirely immune to their strings. The goal isn't grinding others beneath your boot, but achieving absolute sovereignty over your own mind and your own destiny. The absolute wild card in any environment is the guy risking 0 chips. But the absolute king of the board is the one who has hacked the human brain and leverages that code to elevate the entire room. Which one are you deciding to become right now? If this breakdown completely shattered your perspective on dominance and strategy, smash that like icon. If you crave a deeper dive into the mechanics of the mind, tactical maneuvers, and human nature, hit the subscribe button and trigger the alert bell. Leave a comment below detailing which of these 8 pillars you notice the elite titans using, and tell me which one you are deploying tomorrow morning. Until we speak again, lock this in your brain. Authentic brilliance isn't merely having a high IQ. It is possessing the maturity to wield that heavy weaponry to defend a cause much larger than your own ego. Stay calculating, retain your honor, and remain an unstoppable force.